Hello, Polina. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am thrilled because you are just the perfect person for me to interview
Thank you.
on We Can Learn to Learn because you have such extensive background in schools as an OT, and that is occupational therapist. You've worked as an independent provider at Bank Street. You started an OT department at a school. You worked in the education department here in New York City. You started your own business here in New York City, Function Junction. I love the name.
Thank you.
East side and on the west side.
Yes.
So, with that background and within the context of today's reality where there are so many cuts to education, so many students. I heard the statistics that over 50% of the students have not received
Yeah.
their services, mandated services. And there is teacher attrition, administrative attrition, principal attrition. So everybody is really quite, their plates are quite full.
Yes.
And they still have to teach students in the classroom who have just come out of the pandemic
Yeah.
with parents who are also experiencing extreme hardship. And so it's important for teachers to recognize and hear from a professional such as you that when children can't sit still, which is what teachers want them to do in class, when they can't sit still, when they have funny body movements like throwing themselves on the floor, etc., that it's not intentional. And I'm wondering, have you noticed an increase or a shift or a change since the pandemic in the student population as you see them in school as well as in your private practice?
Yes, we have noticed an influx in since the pandemic in sensory processing and motor delays. It's actually quite interesting percentage wise. It's very hard for me to say, but we are seeing a lot. I mean, occupational therapists and physical therapists, we're seeing a lot of sensory processing issues as well as motor delays. And I think the main reason is because during the pandemic, a lot of children were really not allowed to be outside. They were not allowed to participate in activities that really help develop our motor and sensory development, is sensory systems, which is crucial for our overall development. All these activities, such as climbing, crawling in the playground, being exposed to outside noise, being part of just New York City streets, and spending time moving, because most of the children that are growing up in New York City are participating in a lot of extracurricular activities: swimming, karate, yoga, lots of different things that they do, team sports. And all of that was stopped during pandemic, but all of that helps us develop all of our systems and improve overall strength, coordination, neurological flexibility. All of it has been kind of impacted. And what we do see is, honestly, I'll come to the classroom, and for most of the kids in the classroom are sitting in W sit, or they're leaning on things. They're leaning on adults. They're laying down on their stomachs, and this is a number one issue. So most of the recommendations that I make is, let's get the kids out of the strollers. Let's go to the playground more often. Let's do a lot more movement, a lot of climbing, running, all the typical things that children need to be doing on their own to explore the environment, to explore their sensory systems, as well as just really develop the strength that we need to be able to sit upright, to be able to really focus and process the information throughout the day. Um, we've been noticing a lot of kids are kind of like leaning on adults, laying down on their bellies, and part of it is, what do we do with this, right? When the whole classroom is doing it, how do we help these kids, right? And that would be the movement breaks that we offer, and other, of course, other activities that we work with adults and children and teachers and parents at home.
And I think that, the title of our talk is Behavior, Insight to the Body's Messages, right?
Yes.
Sometimes we say a certain person is depressed. Well, what does depression mean? Really, what does it mean? What are the root
Mhm.
causes? And that's where your expertise comes into play. I have children who are constantly leaning on me. They're in strollers who are just leaning back. They're being carried, in strollers. They come to school in strollers. They go back home. And part of it is that it's more convenient for the adult. They can control the child better if he's in the stroller, right? So,
True.
no,
True.
but I mean, that's not an excuse really for the child not to have that kind of activity, which also affects his ability to learn, right?
Absolutely. Yes,
Ultimately,
absolutely.
it's the mind body together. So when it, so I had a 3-year-old, and the parents are fantastic parents, really on top of things. He was evaluated, and for some reason they said, nope, he doesn't need to be evaluated for PT.
Hmm.
And and then when I insisted, he went and he was evaluated for PT, and he was considered to be severely delayed.
Hmm.
So getting evaluations are really, really critical for parents to know that. It's a win-win situation. Maybe they qualify and maybe they don't, and they actually benefit from it. But in this day and age, even if they qualify for it, they don't necessarily get the services. And the onus is on the teachers to provide them with the right kind of activities. So when a child is sitting in the W position, which is sitting on the floor with their lower legs spread out beside them,
On
like
the side, yeah,
on the
and
side,
the tushy on the floor, yeah.
and the tushy on the floor, what can we do for a child like that? What does it mean? Where does it come from? Is it that it has core muscle weaknesses?
So for that specific example, yes, it's a core control difficulties, ability to, the lower body is, their laxity in the joints, meaning the joints are probably very weak. And so their ability to sit upright is challenged if they are asked to sit in a crisscross position, because it's very challenging for them to hold that position for longer periods of time, which is called core control. But if they're sitting a W sit, they're increasing the base of support in order for them to maintain that position on the floor for longer periods of time without leaning on something or an adult. So that is where the underlying issue is. But in general, there are lots of multiple systems that are responsible on being able to focus, attend on their academic performance, right? There can be many reasons why the students are having difficulty staying on tasks, focused, sitting upright. It's not just the core. There are multiple other things that are happening in their bodies that we need to take into consideration when we look at a student, right? One of the examples you gave was, not able to sit still. They're fidgety. They're moving back and forth around, right? They're, part of the issues that we have lots of sensitive. We have visual system, auditory, olfactory, vestibular system, the proprioceptive, tactile systems, and gustatory systems. All of these are responsible. It's all under umbrella of sensory processing, but all of them are responsible for one thing: be able to focus and attend for longer periods of time. But if one of those systems or multiple of those systems are not working together, we will have difficulty sustaining attention. Plus, we need to talk about motor function, right? Such as posture. A lot of children are born with different kinds of tone. Some of their low tone, some of their high tone, some of their normal tone, but all of that needs to be taken into consideration. Then strength. How was this child developing during the early years of their life? Were they exposed to movement a lot? Were they doing a lot of belly crawling on the floor? Were they spending a lot of time moving together with their adults, spending time on during floor time. What happened there? We don't know, but all of these play a huge role. Same as goes for maturity level, motivation level. Are there any specific diagnoses that are impacting their performance, like ADHD, autism, anxiety? Believe it or not, I've had a lot of patients who have GI issues and just can't sit still because they're just either too gassy or have a lot of constipation. Kids with autoimmune diseases, neurological problems, all of these things come into play. And most of the time, we don't really get to see them immediately because we see the behaviors. But as therapists, we always look at what are the underlying issues? What is it out there that's causing the behaviors that we are seeing? And when it comes down to OT, we have very detailed, specific assessments that we use with children to determine what is it that's causing this, and have made quite a lot of, actually in the past few years, quite a lot of referrals out to vision specialists, to developmental pediatricians, to speech therapists, to physical therapists who really need to address, psychologists, psychiatrists, GI professionals, because it's very important to have that, gut and mind connection. There are a lot of children who have really hard time feeling comfortable in their own body if they have issues in their GI tract. All of these things play a huge role in, are we able to sit still? Are we able to focus? Can we hold a pen correctly? It's kind of challenging, right? When you brought us up to me the other day, a student who was moving his head a lot, or there's a lot of children who like roam around the room, right? The roamers. There's a reason why they do it. There's a big reason why they do it. One of it is there's a delay in their vestibular system. The vestibular system is the most important system that's responsible for our movement all throughout. It allows us to know where we are in space. It allows us to know in what proximity we are and how far and close we move together. It allows us to control our balance. And if it's not really developed well, we will have weaker core musculature, we'll have difficulty knowing how much pressure to apply, because proprioception directly depends on the vestibular system. All of it they're all interconnected. All of those sensory systems that I mentioned earlier are very much interconnected with each other. And if we have something off of one, like vestibular system, the other areas will be impacted as well.
Yeah.
So the children who are roaming are those who have difficulty knowing where their body is in space. But think about it. If you don't know where you are in space in relationship to objects around you and people, wouldn't it be a little scary for you?
Oh
it
my
will
God.
cause an anxiety, right? And so what you'll be doing is you'll be moving to feed your nervous system, to feed your vestibular system, to let it know where you are in space. And so those are the pacers that are constantly on the go. Until we address their systems, vestibular system, we won't see much of a change. And you can give them a lot of fidgets, you can give them a lot of cushions and toys, but if you don't treat the underlying problem, these kids are going to be moving nonstop, and they're going to need to have a lot of movement breaks in order for them to feed their nervous system to be able to sustain for the whole circle time on the floor, or sitting at a table and writing up the paragraphs that are required of them. We're talking about really focus and attention that is connected with everything else. If we think about a visual system, if I have issues with tracking, where we have to track the objects with both eyes, look up at the front of the classroom where the blackboard is and look down, to switch quickly from one place to another, to be able to track the reading from one side of the line to the other and switch quickly, to use both eyes together as a team. If we have delays in the oculomotor visual issues, we will have difficulties doing reading, writing, copying from the board, and focusing. Very important, because if we don't have those two eyes together, those two systems work together as a team, we will have difficulties focusing, period. Now, number one thing I do when we do assessment is we look at the kid's eyes, because if the complaint from the parents and the teachers that the child has significant fine motor delays and perceptual issues, we have to see how the child sees. And if we are noticing visual delays, we will be referring these children to the developmental pediatric developmental optometrist, who will take a look at their ability to track, see if they have both eyes working together as a team or not, and then will provide the proper, there might be vision therapy treatment needed, but more often than not, sometimes they get glasses. I will also say that what we have noticed a big change is in children's visual systems lately, because a lot of times kids have been spending a lot more time on the screens, and we do see kids really needing glasses for up close. Young kids, we're talking about 4 or 5 year olds, much younger than it used to be. And so that we have to keep in mind that the visual issues play a key role in the children's attention.
But isn't there like a statistic, like 85 or 80% of our perception comes through our eyes because it's
Yes.
prominent, right?
Yes.
And you brought up, oh my God, you brought up such a treasure chest of information. One of the complaints that I have, I notice people's eyes. I notice my today I had a new student, and he was fine in many ways, but there was something about his eye.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there is something, when the students don't pay attention, don't respond when you call them, it could be something to do, it could have something to do with their audio processing or their
Yes.
hearing or whatever. So I send them to the screen for their hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And I also mentioned to the parents that, you might wish to have your child's eyes checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And would you believe that 99% of the time they come back from these specialists who say there's nothing wrong? We don't find anything structurally wrong. And yet the student, who I told you this, he is constantly rubbing his eyes. And I told the parents, I said, ask the pediatric ophthalmologist whether, not just whether his eyes are healthy and visual acuity, but are they working together?
Right.
He's asking that. And they said,
Right.
yes, there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
So that's him. Then the audio, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they can be screened, but they apparently, according to the polyvagal theory and Steve Porges, the middle ear changes based on trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean big trauma, although that too, but chronic stress and trauma can change the musculature, tighten it in
Fluid
the
in
brain.
the ears. Yep. Fluid changes. Yep. Ear
And
infections cause it.
yep, exactly. So, what do we do given the fact that we can't even rely on, because there is, Steve Porges says that's a between stimulus and response, there is an intervening variable.
Mm-hmm.
That is the invisible. And that's what I wanted to ask you about. When we have a situation where the doctors say there's nothing wrong with his eyes, but we see that he's constantly rubbing his eyes, he's going like this with his eyes, and the other student, there is something going on with his eyes as well, some of them with the hearing. What do we do?
So one is, the question is, which specialist did you go to? I will say it very clearly. The reason for that is because we've sent patients to developmental optometrists, parents took them to the ophthalmologist. It's interesting, I can't figure out the connection, but ophthalmologists really don't look so much at the functional use of the eyes. Pediatric optometrists do, and they make kids to do specific testing in their offices, using perceptual tools to see how the eyes work together. Ophthalmologists do not do that test. So that's very important, because we've had reports from the same For the same child was seen by ophthalmologist, but nothing was found, but then was seen by optometrist, and there were significant convergence issues where the child could not use both eyes together as a team.
Yes.
That's a one thing. The other thing, there are other diagnoses like Irlen syndrome, where it's a scoptic sensitivity to light, where the child has difficulty processing on how the light hits the eye and the nerve and processes the system, the light in how the light is processed in the brain. What it does is it affects their sensitivity, and so we often see them wanting to wear a cap, putting the sunglasses on. But what you do see with these kids behaviorally is they have difficulty focusing. They tilt their head, they cover one eye, they rub their eyes because their eyes are super sensitive to light. And so the really treatment for that would be something called Irlen lenses, where you put them on. It's just a specific tint that's done by the Irlen company. It's not any tint. It's a very specific tint that filters how the light hits the eye and helps the child focus. I just recently had an assessment of that child. We've been working on him. Honestly, we've done vision therapy with that student of mine. We've done speech therapy, occupational therapy, and a lot of auditory work. And there was still something with reading, and the child still had difficulties. And I said, I want to evaluate and do Irlen screening. We did the Irlen screening, and he turned out to have a moderate issues with that. And what we did was we prescribed him to have Irlen's special lenses. And he came back and he said, I love it. I read so much better. I understand so much better what I'm reading. And you could visually see how he reads much faster and quick and with effortless. Like there was no effort in completing the reading, but also understanding what he read.
Yeah.
And it made a big difference for him. He said, I love it.
Yeah.
Now, it was so well, he did so well with that I actually discharged him. But in general, a lot of students have these underlying, right, the invisibles that need to be addressed. We definitely want to see what other things that are happening in the systems, right? When we talk about auditory processing, there might be absolutely nothing wrong structurally with the child, but we can see that there's auditory processing delays, or there's significant sensitivity to sounds, which is actually what we've noticed a lot more post-COVID. We've been even getting teenagers referred to us for auditory sensitivities. I think partly is because the city was so quiet and we were not exposed so much. We spent a lot of time on our headphones. And when the kids were out and about, when the COVID was over, we've been noticing that they really can't handle that input anymore. It's too much for them. So we've been working a lot on desensitizing them. There's specific listening programs that you could do to help desensitize the sensitivities to sound, and therefore be able to distinguish between foreground, which is what's happening here, and tune out the background, and they're able to focus at hand and be able to complete activities. These are the specific strategies that I'm discussing here. But in general, I think those are the things that we really need to look into it, not just is there structural issues, which is very important to know.
Just kind of eliminate that and
eliminate that out of, and then let's piece together what else is there. When kids come to us, we look at them as a puzzle. Let's put all the puzzle pieces together and figure out what is really causing, what are the underlying issues that could affect your functioning overall.
That's right. And your learning. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because, learning is an essential skill. Without the ability to learn, and if you start getting feedback that why can't you do this, and misunderstandings because they think students are intentionally not listening, not paying attention, moving around, defying authority, then that ends up in the long run affecting the student's self-worth.
Yes,
And
self-esteem. Absolutely.
and trust in themselves that they can learn,
Yes.
and then that actually adds to stress. And so, you're so fascinating to talk to that we've come to the end, but I can't stop without asking you for three practices that you could give to preschool teachers or elementary school teachers as mini movements that would help them, during circle time or during the day.
Absolutely. I think movement is the key in the settings that we're talking about small classroom settings, large classroom settings. Movement overall is helpful to organize the body. I would say doing animal walks for pre-Ks, doing all sorts of animal walks. It doesn't have to be a 10-20 minute activity. It can be a 5-minute activity where you ask children to pretend that they are giraffes, that they are bears. Ask them to do, let's go across the room, pretend that we are bear. Let's come back as a wheelbarrow. Pretend that we are planting the trees and we have all that soil that we need to plant. Will be a wheelbarrow. The child will be a wheelbarrow. Crawling on the floor as snakes. This would prepare them to, it would be a good prep activity to do it before circle time or before any activities that require a more challenging tasks, right? If you know that these children have hard time during art class, why don't we do the movement 5-minute movement before, or during the transitions? Let's stomp like elephants going up the stairs to the art room classroom. Pretend that we are doing deep breathing activities. There's a really good activity called a square breathing. You know what I'm talking about, right? There are lots of different breathing activities. Yoga moves are amazing. There's a really good program that was created by occupational therapists called Drive-Through Menu. And they sell them on Amazon as well as on therapro.com. And it comes in as cards and as games. There are different activities for attention and for the strength, where you can do the 2-3 minute activities with the children to get them prepped and organized. Doing kind of like push-ups on the chair, wall push-ups, pretending that we're trying to move the wall. Ask kids to do errands. So those particular children who are very antsy, give him something heavy to carry, like a rim of books or rim of paper. Ask them to bring it to the office. Really move the furniture around the classroom. Help us set up the chairs a little in a different way. All of these heavy work activities is what we call it, are loading the joints, and they're calming and grounding for children.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Polina, thank you so much. Don't be surprised if I ask you to come back for part 2, because there is so much really to talk about. You are you love learning, and your trainings are just amazing, and each one of them could be a program in and of itself. So don't be
That's true.
surprised. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, Mina. It was a pleasure. And I hope my information that I gave today was helpful for
Very
people.
much so. For me, as a teacher, tomorrow I'm going to go and do the wheelbarrow with the students.
Good luck.